Welcome to the Tech Byte on setting up the health system for a district. I'm Beth Elliott, and today we're going to be going over the various areas where you want to make sure that your health information is the same, the setup files, for all of your schools. And those files are set up in a couple of different areas. We're first going to go to our health condition codes, and you find those under Health, More Health Editing Jobs, and Edit the Health Condition Codes. In here, you have a list of the various codes that you have. Now, some of these, like the CMD, are for your communicable diseases. You might also have some dental record of what was the tooth problem, what action was taken, and what was the result. So it might have been that there was decay. They were sent to the dentist so they could get a filling, that sort of thing. You also have in here health conditions and immunizations. Now, the health conditions can have sub-areas. So you can have CHC. There are 4 here that are here by default. The CHC are your chronic health conditions. Your DVD is the developmental disabilities of a student. You might just have general health problem. And then you have a PRN, which is not as an as needed, but it's actually a physical related need. And you want these codes to be the same so that when you go from student to student, or actually from school to school, the same code means the same thing. Because it only brings the code in, it doesn't bring the description in. So there's 2 ways to bring those files over from one system to another. One is that you can set up to copy this table for another school in the district, in which case you click on the 3 dots. This gives you the ability to set up where you'd like to put it. And by default, if you scroll down, you'll find that it's going to put it in your work folder. And if you're not in the root of the work folder, it's going to put you in whoever you are as a user. Or you can pick a place for that. At this point, you would then enter the school code that you want to copy from, because we're just setting it up the first time. And you click on the button that says Copy. And what this does is it duplicates the records for that school in that year. Now at this point, I can go to another school and I can bring those records in. And I would do that by changing my school code, going back into the health conditions area, and it lets me know that there are no records found there. Do I want to load the defaults? And I can say no, because my codes that I had from the high school might not be the defaults for all of the system that's in there. So what I do at this point is I go and select that work area again. It knows the name of the file that I'm doing because I'm in the health conditions. It wants to know what school am I coming from at this point. And then I click to import the HLC, which is my health condition table. And it lets me know that I'm going to do that. Do I want to continue? And the answer is yes. So it gives me that action, and it brought it all in, and here are the codes. Now, one of the things you want to do before you've set up these codes and you start copying from one school to another is you want to make sure that the nurses have had a chance to go through the codes and only have the codes that you're going to need. So rather than have potentially a big massive list of the defaults that you might decide that you don't want to use, you can come in here and delete the codes that you're not going to use, so you have a much shorter list to work from. It doesn't hurt you any to have a bigger list. Another way to bring those codes from one school to another is I'm going to go in, close out of here, and I'm going to do that through school year maintenance. So under admin, I'm going to go down to school year maintenance. Within school year maintenance, there are a variety of student tables. So I can go the default, instead of going from the middle school here from one year to another, I want to come back a year and go to a different school. So I can go to one of my elementaries in the same year. And I'm going to click in the list of tables, and I'm going to type in H to get me down into those. So there's the health conditions table that I was just working with. I also have other tables that I want to grab at the same time. And that can be my medications, which is a master list of what medications the students can be on. As I scroll down, I can look at my office visit codes, which is why the students have come in to see the nurse, what the assessment was as to what was wrong with them, the intervention as to what was done, and then the discharge of where they sent back to class or somewhere else. There is the possibility to have preventive ed classes that might have to do with hygiene or smoking or things like that. And there's also the state immunization requirements table. And what that table is it lets me set up rules for the state as to what I want to work with. And I can come in and select those 5 tables, and I can go ahead and process and copy them from one school to another. Now, if those records already existed, or if there was potential records that were already there, it would have given me a message and told me either to delete the records first or do a compare and update. Either one of those would have worked. So I'm going to go back to the high school, and anytime you come out of school year maintenance, you're always going to go back to your default school. And I'm going to show you where some of those other tables are set up. So one of the tables we worked with was the medications table. And I'm going to go in through these little pill bottles that are up at the top, which is my medications management. I could also get there by going under health on the left and go to the medication management that's there. Now in here on the right side is a edit medications, and that's going to give me a list of all the medications that I have in the system. This was the first time coming in, and I had not set this up prior to now. I'm going to have the ability to set up a default list of medications. You might want to do that at one school, give the nurses again the ability to go and look at what they are and decide, do they want to add to that list? Do they want to drop some of the ones that are in there? And just come up with a nice master list for what's used in your district. Now the type of medication and the form are both drop downs that I can pick, and both of those are going to come from the Valid Data Selection Table Editor, and that's under Admin and the Valid Data Selection Table Editor. You will need to know that it's from the medication table, which is actually MED, and it would allow you to then change those areas. So if I go ahead and exit out of here, I can go in to look at that valid data. So I'm going to change my table, and I want to go to the health area, but I'm going to come down to my medications table. And at that point, I can pick either the form, and I can use my yellow plus at the top to add more to this, or I can go to the type of medication. So either of those gives me a nice, easy way where I can select that information. There are some other health tables that are in here, things like the health office visits table with the reason for visit. So here there's a couple of fields that are definitely used for Pennsylvania, but other states could also use it, or you can just opt that you'd like to use it. But here it's a location of where an injury occurred or the time period of that injury. So I went from, say, the baseball field, and I've now said that it's going to be in PE class. There are other tables, if I scroll up, that usually start with an H. One is the health conditions table, and in here I have things like my subcategories where I can come in and specify that this is chronic health. So it gives me a way to put in descriptions that go with that. I can also go into the medical log. So as they're coming into here, I can say the reason for dispensing the medication, the status of whether it was a no-show, absence, or administered. You can just come into your different tables and take a look at what's here and look at the different areas as to why you would want to change that. But by making it consistent, what's really good is as the students move between schools, the information means the same. And that makes it really handy. So we've worked with some of the medication. Another area is the daily log. So I'm going to click on the log button here, and it might also be under the health and the log office visits. And as we did with the medication, the rightmost column or tab is my office visit codes. And there are 4 types of categories. There's the reason for visit of why the student came to the office. Now those could be specifics that they came in with an earache or a stomach ache or something like that. Or it might be a general reason of they came in with an injury, they came in for nursing care, or some other reason they came in with an illness. So you can use things like the reason for visit to facilitate creating your reports later if you need to export things and come up with stuff for the state. Now, the assessment is the reason of why they came in, so it's sort of an addition to the reason for visit. So it might have been that you took their temperature or vitals, you did something else. The intervention would be that maybe you gave them a cold compress or you bandaged where the area was, and then you have the discharge, which is where they went back to. This table, as with the health condition codes, gives you an area where you can copy it and or import it to another school. So either of those will work here. And the last of the areas we're going to go to is the preventive ed area. So under health, more health editing jobs, you can edit the preventive ed courses. Now the courses gives you a way where you can add in what codes you want with a description and or units or hours. Now this is only needed if you are actually using the preventive ed area. If you're not, then you can ignore it. The last of the areas that we can set up is under health, more health editing jobs, and one of the places is the state immunization requirements. So you can come in and select the state that you are. So I'm going to use New Hampshire here, and I'm going to tell it I want to load the defaults. Now I could overwrite my existing area, and you do have the ability to set up 10 different immunization requirements. Now in this I have the most recent ones for New Hampshire. And what you would normally see here is the school year, the state, and usually it's the date of the file of when the state released that information. Now sometimes you don't see an update for the state, and that's because they haven't changed their requirements from this year to last year or the year before. So it does give you that capability to come in and see what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and exit. And you can also get in through the immunizations is another way to get to that same editor. But that gives us the ability to set them up and bring the records from one place to another. The other place that you can work with is if you've had the situation where you had a student who was maybe here as a middle school or an elementary student, the family moved, and the family has now moved back into town a couple of years later, you need a way to bring, say, the immunization records forward. So under admin, there is an interschool data transfer. What this does is you can go into the school that you want. You can indicate what school or schools you want to transfer from, and one of your choices is your immunization records. Now you can do a student range to limit which students you want to work with, or you can just say if these students are in any of my other schools and I don't see their records, I want to bring them in. And you can select any and all of your school years to be able to bring those records. Now, if your codes have been the same across all the years, then it's just going to bring them in and you're not going to have a problem. But if you have a situation where the sending school has a code that the receiving school does not, then you have 3 choices of what do you do with that new code. You can opt to not transfer records for a missing code because it might have been you changed some codes. You can be prompted for a new immunization code, or you can automatically insert the new code and just say, yep, just bring it in. Don't worry about it. So it gives you that option to be able to bring them in. And that just makes it really handy for students as they move between schools. One last area that I'd like to show you, and that's under health operations, and you have the ability to refresh the default health condition codes or the office visit codes. So especially for the default health condition codes, if the MMS has updated the communicable diseases or the immunizations, you might want to bring in any new ones that we have set up because they're always coming out with new combinations. Used to be that you had your measles, mumps, rubella as separate shots, and now there's a combined shot. And recently they've also added a combined where it's the measles, mumps, rubella, and varicella. So you can get 4 shots for the price of 1. So what this does is when you process, it's going to give you the ability to go in and update those records so that you have them up to date. So that just makes it a nice, easy way to bring those in. In any of these, you can always go into the question mark to get help, and it's going to give you information on how to use that particular area that you're in. And depending on if you were in things like the medication management or the health office visits, there is a separate tab that is specific to edit the code, and it's going to walk you through what that does. And in some of these, it even tells you where it's going to put it, what kind of a code you're going to use. So it makes it nice to be able to work with that. So thank you very much for participating in this Tech Byte, and I really hope it helped.